Happy holidays, everybody. I'm Theo.
And I'm Marshall. And this is
Twin Cinema, the show where we have two brothers
reviewing two movies
based on one theme.
And this episode, our theme is movies that Theo and I watched it for Christmas as kids. But Theo, I have a confession to make.
Actually, I kind of have a confession myself.
Well, let's not fight about who's going to say the confession first. Why don't we just say the confession together?
All right, on three.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. I sold my movie. What?
What happened?
All right, well, I'll be honest. I've been a little short on cash, and I sold my copy of Gremlins so that, I could buy you a Christmas present.
Well, I can't really be mad at you. I spent all my cash on eggnog, and, well, to afford your present, I had to sell my copy of the Muppet Christmas Carol.
Jeez, this is our second episode, and we don't even have movies to review.
I know, and it's our Christmas special. Look, we've got to do something for our fans.
I've got it.
What?
We have Christmas presents. Why don't we just record us giving each other presents?
It's a great idea.
All right. Merry Christmas, Marshall.
Merry Christmas, Theo.
You got me Gremlins!
You got me the Muppet Christmas Carol!
Christmas is saved! Alright, well great. We actually have movies to review now.
Awesome!
Alright, so for this episode of Twin Cinema, we are going to be reviewing the 1984 classic Gremlins.
And the 1992 Christmas family flick, The Muppet Christmas Carol. Gremlins starts with inventor Randall Peltzer looking to sell both his inventions and to buy his son Billy a gift in Chinatown. After failing to sell a shopkeeper his wares, Randall notices a strange creature which the shopkeep calls a mogwai. Randall offers to buy the animal, but the shopkeeper refuses. However, the shopkeeper's grandson sells Randall the mogwai clandestinely and warns him to follow 3 rules. Number 1, mogwai don't like bright light. 2, don't get them wet. 3, don't feed them after midnight. Randall calls the mogwai Gizmo and gives him to Billy as a pet. While Billy does his best to follow the 3 rules, his friend Pete accidentally gets Gizmo wet, which causes additional mogwai to spawn from Gizmo. While Gizmo is friendly, the new mogwai are more treacherous, and eventually trick Billy into feeding them after midnight. The next day, the furry mogwai have transformed into pods, which eventually hatch into reptilian creatures of townsfolk called Gremlins. The rest of Christmas Eve is spent with Billy and his girlfriend Kate fighting the evil Gremlins with the help of Gizmo and saving the town. After the Gremlins are defeated, the original shopkeeper comes to the house to take Gizmo back, telling the family that Western society isn't ready for mogwai, but Billy may be one day.
The Muppets Christmas Carol tells the old tale of one man's redemption. The miser Scrooge is a misanthrope who hates Christmas and his fellow man. However, he is warned by the ghosts of his dead partners, Jacob and Robert Marley, that if he doesn't mend his ways, an afterlife of torture awaits him. To help him avoid this fate, 3 spirits are sent to show him the error of his ways. The first spirit, the ghost of Christmas past, shows him all the things he has missed out on in his life due to his pursuit of money. The ghost of Christmas present shows him what he is missing out on now by shutting people out of his life. And finally, the ghost of Christmas yet to come shows him the grim future that lies ahead for Scrooge and the family of his assistant, Bob Cratchit, if Scrooge continues his miserly ways. Scrooge awakens the next morning a changed man and learns to celebrate Christmas and care for other people. Alright, so, I was thinking what we could do for this is, there was something about each movie that we kind of thought we would discuss independently of each other, and then we would bring it back home as a theme and talk about them together to talk about how they function as Christmas films.
Yep. They're both totally different films, but I ended up actually seeing a lot of similarities between the two that you really wouldn't have thought of, so we definitely want to spend more time in this review talking about the two movies together than apart, as opposed to our first review where the two movies are too different for us to really compare them.
Exactly. But there is a few things that are kind of unique to each film. So the first one I want to talk about is Gremlins.
Yeah.
Specifically, Gremlins is actually was a pretty controversial film at the time.
Yep. Mostly for the violence. It's a very violent film. A bit more violent than I actually remembered, even though most of the violence was towards, like, the Gremlins. A lot of the human violence was off-screen with, like, really only one fully seen on-screen death. Everything else was just kind of like a cutaway.
And that was Mrs. Deagle. And that death was so slapstick, so comedic, that the actual violence, I mean, she's basically thrown out a window, but it's so funny the way that it's set up that it's really like you kind of are desensitized to the violence of it.
It also feels good because you hate her.
You're really built up not to like her. She plays this really like mean character.
She's kind of like the Wicked Witch of the West and Ebenezer Scrooge kind of rolled up into one.
The bank and I have the same purpose in life: to make money, not to support a lot of deadbeats. You mangy cur! I'll get you.
And that actually was like, when you think about it, it's really weird because I feel like when you watch the movie, you can tell there was definitely something in production. There was like a difference in opinion on the way the movie should go. Mm-hmm. You can read accounts about it and that's true, but you can definitely sense it in the film itself, in the finished product.
Yeah. Especially because the first part, when you first get to the Gremlins, it is a straight up horror film. Like, I was actually, no matter how many times I see it, like the first couple of scenes with like the Gremlins attacking Mr. Hanson and the one where he's attacking Billy's mom are like legitimately scary, suspenseful, really creepy scenes like that are like they hold their own to like any like
creature feature
horror movie.
Especially what I really like is they do the horror really well because they take a long time to show you the actual gremlin.
Yeah.
Like, they do a great establishing. You see these creepy pods, and then you see the pods hatching, but you don't see what's coming out.
No, yeah, it's really well done. If you haven't seen Gremlins, definitely recommend it. No matter how many times you see it, it still scares me. But then you get to once the Gremlins are actually there, and it's not really as scary.
Yeah, the tone really changes after Stripe jumps into the pool to spawn more gremlins.
The gremlins become more human-like. They're less
monstrous.
Like beforehand, like they're really not very, they're not very anthropomorphic. They're really just like these really scary creatures. But like once they become like multiplied, there's a bunch of them. They wear clothes. They do crazy things. Like there's a flasher gremlin. There's a flash dance gremlin. They smoke and they know how to use guns. It's kind of silly.
It just becomes very slapstick. And when you read about the production of the movie, you know that was actually the original cut of the film, the original version of the script. It was supposed to be way darker. They wanted to skew way, way darker. Like, for example, the mother in the final version, she pretty much kills all the gremlins except for Stripe.
Mm-hmm.
Or
That's
Stripe. It was Stripe. But originally, the gremlins were supposed to kill the mother, chop off her head, and then when Billy walks into the house, her head is supposed to
roll down the stairs.
Roll down the stairs. To me, okay, that definitely would have been an R.
Yeah. What I would have really loved to see is the scene where they overrun McDonald's and they ignore the hamburgers and eat the humans.
Yeah, that'd be really funny. And the controversy of this is the way that the film was marketed. It really centered on Gizmo, who is this really cute, really cuddly anthropomorphic creature. Yeah. And the first part of the movie, before they turn into gremlins, it's a very cutesy, funny, not dark at all movie. Yeah. Gizmo's really cute, he's really friendly for kids.
And that's why I think they did it. Because actually, originally, Gizmo was supposed to turn into Stripe. But Spielberg, who was producing the film, decided that they should just have the cute little Mogwai all the way through. I think that's really what happened, is they decided, hey, we can make a lot more money if we market this cute little thing to kids. And it worked, because...
It made a lot of money.
And us, born 2 years after this film came out, once we watched it with our babysitter, we had to have the toys. We had a Gizmo doll and a Stripe. It wasn't really a doll, but
action figure thing.
It was really big, though. It was like to scale size. We had the novelization, and we even had the little records that came with the Happy Meal.
Yeah.
I don't know how our parents found it, but they did.
Totally. So, we had, even though we were born after the film came out, and it was a couple years old by the time we were old enough to watch it, we still fell for the marketing ploy.
It's awful, but, I think they kind of addressed it a little bit on the sequel. I know we don't want to talk too much about the sequel, but the sequel, it's zany throughout. It was, funny throughout, which kind of made it a more cohesive film, even though I do think the sequel is a bit of a lesser entry.
I agree. Actually, a lot of parents were really upset by the violence because they thought it was just going to be a cute family movie, and they left. That is actually why this movie and The Temple of Doom, another Steven Spielberg, I think he directed that, didn't he?
He did direct it, yeah.
He directed that. One of his other Spielberg projects, actually is the reason we have PG-13 now. Because, there was this real, there is this need for a market that is like, okay, it's a little bit too much for PG, but it's not really an R, so, you can thank Gremlins for the PG-13 movies we know and love today.
Yep, and ironically, our parents wouldn't let us see Jurassic Park because it was PG-13.
But they would let us watch Gremlins because it was PG.
Yeah, and I got way more...
Gremlins is way scarier.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to talk more about Gremlins when we talk about them both together. So why don't we go on to the next film, The Muppet Christmas Carol, which definitely a Christmas classic for both of us. We watched it every year, every Christmas Eve. That was our family's tradition, is to watch that film.
Exactly. So, like we said, pretty much, in the English-speaking world, The Christmas Carol is the quintessential Christmas story.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at, retellings of The Christmas Carol, you have to say what separates our movie from the pack. And of course, in this case, it's definitely the Muppets.
Yeah. The Muppets really sell it, especially Gonzo. He plays Charles Dickens, and he's with Rizzo the Rat. They work as a pair. It's very interesting because he is very conscious about the fact that he's a storyteller.
It's a very meta entry.
Yes, it's very got that 90s postmodern feel to it. It's postmodern before Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the things I really liked about it is it's very literary. It talks about what is the role of a narrator. There's a scene where Rizzo is questioning, how do you know what's happening in the house? We're outside the house.
I'm telling you, storytellers are omniscient. I know everything.
Hoity-toity, Mr. Godlike Smarty Pants.
Now, I will say one thing that some people may not like about the Muppet version would be the fact that, and this is also in the Mickey's Christmas Carol, which we watched a long time ago, you never really believe the Muppets as their characters.
You really see the Muppets, and then you see the character secondary.
Yes, it's just like, oh, the Muppets are playing. Now, that's not a problem they had with the ghosts, because the ghosts are new Muppets, and I think the reason they did that was because you wouldn't get distracted by the fact, you're watching Fozzie play the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come,
Oh, you mean the spirits?
The spirits, yeah. Obviously, they had the ghosts be Jacob and Robert Marley. No, I mean, it makes me think of Brechtian theater with the alienation effect, where they kind of want to call to attention that this is a work of fiction. It does give you a sense, you're supposed to get a certain sense of Kermit. You're supposed to get a different feeling of Kermit playing Bob Cratchit than you would if you're watching an all-human version of a Christmas Carol where you're watching a person play Bob Cratchit. So I think creates a very interesting effect.
And I think as an adult, and I think this is why I still enjoy it so much as an adult, as a child, I mean, I thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
I got the joke at a very basic level of, oh, haha, he's making a joke that, like, he's a narrator, but he's not really the narrator. But as an adult, the breaking of the fourth wall all the time and the talking about the purpose of the narrator really, like, calls into account that, you know, this is such an important text in our shared cultural history. Mm-hmm. And it kind of makes me, like, examine, like, what place in our culture does the Christmas Carol hold, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's basically like you have these two pretty big things in American culture, the Christmas Carol and the Muppets, and you combine them.
Yeah.
Charles Dickens was a 19th century novelist, a genius.
Oh, you were too kind.
And I you know, that's one thing that I still love about it.
Yeah. Now, having Muppets play such well-known characters is kind of a controversy, obviously not a huge one. Well, it was kind of controversial to us, and probably some other people, but especially to us, was the cutting of a very important scene. One of the main scenes in The Ghost of Christmas Past, or The Spirit of Christmas Past, was a scene where Belle, Ebenezer's fiancée, leaves Ebenezer. In the theatrical version, the DVD version that we have, and the Netflix version that, as of December 2014, is available to stream.
I love you, Bill.
You did once.
But in the version that we had on the VHS, and I've heard this is on some version of like a special edition DVD, she sings a song called When Love Is Gone.
And to me, and this is where, you know, the Muppets, which in general I feel is a positive to the film, really made it a detriment to the film because, I mean, I don't know the exact reason, but it's my thought, remembering me as a kid, this is the only song that doesn't have a Muppet in it.
Yeah.
Other than, you know, they show, I think they show Gonzo and Rizzo, but they're not really interacting, they're just watching.
In fact, I don't even think they're even there. I think they're at the very beginning and the very end of the song.
Okay. It's been a while since this is only on the VHS version, so it's been a year since I've seen it. But you can tell that they probably took it out because they wanted to make it more kid-friendly.
And we hated that.
And I hated that song when I was a kid. So I get that. But as an adult, when she just gets up and leaves, it's not a very powerful scene.
No.
But then with the song, because they don't show, you know, they're showing really just snippets of his past. So you really don't see
the relationship.
You just see their meeting and their party. You don't see any of their building relationship. So in the version with the song really makes you understand how invested she was in that relationship, and that at one time Scrooge was, but Scrooge let go of that relationship in order to pursue his career, and that makes her leaving powerful. Mm-hmm. It makes that scene sad. And right after the song, they still leave it in this version where the song is cut, they show, you know, Gonzo and Rizzo crying, and it's sort of like, oh, what's the point? Why are they crying? You as the audience who don't see the song, you don't really feel anything, so like, why are you crying?
And more importantly, during the song, it's you see a little bit of young Ebenezer, but the best part is Michael Caine is following her and kind of singing along and kind of not really dancing, but like, you know, she's just kind of following her, and he's realized, what have I done?
What have I given up?
I've like ruined my life, basically. I remember watching this one Christmas Eve with some friends of the family, and something that stuck with me was the dad of one of our friends said, you know, it's the things that we don't do in life that we regret, not the things that we do. And I think that song really encapsulates that.
Exactly. And something that really bothers me from a like structural standpoint, in terms of like plot structure, that song is reprised at the end.
The love we found, the love we found, we carry with us, so we're never quite alone.
And obviously the reprisal is a reprisal.
Mm-hmm.
It's calling back to the song that played earlier, but in these versions where it's cut, it just seems weird and out of place.
Yeah.
And not like a full song, which is not a full song, it's a reprisal.
Yeah.
And the issue is like, the issue is that song originally signals his downfall, and then later on signals his redemption into like his humanity, like his loss of humanity, and then his like how he regains his humanity. And cutting that song, while it makes sense for children, for a children's movie, as like a movie for children and adults, like the kids can just get through the 3 minutes the song is, and then the adults can appreciate it. Because it's not like the movie is long. It's only 86 minutes. Yeah.
It just made it a solid 90. Why not? Also annoying is at the end of the credits, they turn When Love Is Gone into one of those god-awful pop ballads that was really popular in the early 90s.
It's crap.
It was really bad, but in film, it's a beautiful song.
It's a beautiful song.
Actually, probably better than the other schmaltzy songs.
Yeah. Honestly, they could have cut out Tiny Tim's really...
Tiny Tim, I'm the perfect character.
Gosh, so annoying.
Tiny Tim's the world's biggest Mary Sue.
Life is full of sweet surprises. Every day's a gift.
Before Mary Sue is even a thing.
Yeah. So, all right, we kind of talked about it individually, but I feel at the same token, like, The Christmas Carol sort of moved... Our discussion of The Christmas Carol moved into this. What do we think of the movies as Christmas movies?
Well, I love Christmas movies, personally. I know you really aren't fond of them.
No.
From December 1st to December 25th, I can watch the cheesiest, tackiest, dumbest, hollow moral movie imaginable. But these two movies are some of the most important Christmas movies to me for two reasons, different reasons. Muppet Christmas Carol, very straight, but with jokes and little like nods to the audience. Gremlins is a subversion of the Christmas movies, and that's why I like it so much as an adult.
And, you know, I don't like Christmas movies very much. Whenever you're watching them, I usually roll my eyes and leave the room.
He's like, why are you watching this? I'm like, I can't help it.
I don't like them in general, but I love both these movies for the exact same reasons you do. I feel like the metatextual references in the Muppets Christmas Carol make it the only Christmas Carol version that I can really stand to watch. Mm-hmm. And I feel that Gremlins, while I don't like it as much as I did when I was a kid, it still is fun to watch, and the subversive elements is something that I can appreciate now that I didn't really appreciate as a kid. So for those two reasons, those are why they're two movies I can still watch as an adult.
Oh yeah, because with the Gremlin movie, it begins the Christmas tropes. They've got Mrs. Deagle, who's like a Scrooge. She's in like the Wicked Witch of the West. She wants to kill Billy's dog. She kicks people out. She's gonna get rid of the tavern. This cultural landmark, which in every Christmas special, if there's a cultural landmark, it's gonna get torn down. But then she dies. What happens? We don't know.
Exactly. When you look at a movie like The Christmas Carol, and I feel, once again, because The Christmas Carol is such an important cultural touchstone in American and British society, most Christmas movies, holiday movies, follow this path of redemption, right? The character who is evil, or not evil, but, who's just not a nice person, learns the error of their ways, and is reformed. At the end, it's good. That's a very, what I would call like a holiday story arc.
Yeah.
However, Gremlins, while it starts off with those tropes, it doesn't follow that arc at all.
Yeah.
It follows the more standard horror movie story arc in a moralistic way. When you think about
there's slashers.
There's this idea that bad people or people who do bad things are punished by the horror movie villain. Yeah. And that's what happens in Gremlins. Mrs. Deagle is not reformed. She's not rehabilitated.
She's nasty to the end.
She's nasty to the end, and she gets killed, which is part of why you kind of laugh at her death, because she's not a nice person. So it kind of dehumanizes her and makes it, you can laugh at her demise.
No, totally. No, I totally agree with that. And it does create like a very interesting juxtaposition. It definitely plays with your ideas of like how happy is Christmas, that kind of thing.
Yeah, even before you get on to that sort of use of the horror movie morality play, you even get this idea because Kate, at first talks about how she doesn't like Christmas.
That's funny, because I always thought everyone was happy during the holidays. No matter what.
Well, most people are, but some aren't. While everybody else is opening up their presents, they're opening up their wrists.
And I love it because it's that reminder that just because this is a time of year we're told that we should be happy all the time, but for a lot of people it's really miserable. And there is a little bit of that in The Muppets Christmas Carol. One of my favorite scenes, because it's like this wonderful stark contrast. You have Bob Cratchit singing about tomorrow's Christmas. It's when everyone's happy, everyone's joyous. And then as soon as he finishes his song, the camera pans down and there's this homeless rabbit shivering in the cold because he has nowhere to go.
Yeah. And so I think they both kind of envelop the Christmas spirit, if that makes sense.
At least the idea, like, of the Christmas, what the Christmas spirit should be is told throughout holiday movies.
Holiday movies made to make money.
Exactly.
Which is, care about people, look outwards, look towards your fellow man, don't look inwards, don't look towards material goods.
Yeah, which really, it's really ironic because, I really feel at the end of both movies, the message is the same.
Yeah.
Greediness is bad. Wanting things is bad. If possessing things is your goal, there are consequences. Mm-hmm. In Christmas Carol, the consequences are avoided. But the consequences would be you're going to hell, basically.
Yeah. Or not even hell. When Scrooge dies, no one cares because he's such a horrible person.
Exactly. And Gremlins, the father, all he cares about is having something he wants. He doesn't care about the consequences. The consequence of him going behind the shopkeeper's back and getting the Mogwai.
And not asking, why do I have to follow these rules? He didn't think. He's just I must have this for my son. And he keeps on inventing things that don't need to be invented. Because he's an inventor and everything just breaks. Because he doesn't think about the consequence. He's like, what's new? What's exciting?
Yeah, this idea to have. And that's what causes, basically, people to die. Mm-hmm. So, in that regard, Gremlins, while it's subversive, is at the same time also very non-subversive in the end message.
No, it has, it's still definitely an 80s Hollywood flick. It's, it's produced by Spielberg. It's got to have a kind of, Hollywood ending.
And of course, the grand irony is, for a movie that's supposed to be so anti-consumerism, like we said, they had a lot of merchandise. So, now we talked a little bit about them as a theme. What are your thoughts on the movies in general?
Well, they both hold up. To be honest, I'm going to say I really enjoyed A Muppet Christmas Carol more, but I still love Gremlins. I'm with you. I definitely feel that the Gremlins is better than the sum of its parts. And the things I enjoy as an adult are different than the things I enjoyed as kids. I definitely do wish it had kept the darker tone, but I also understand it probably wouldn't have had the cultural impact if it had been dark all the way through.
Yeah. I feel pretty much the exact same way. Both movies still hold up. They're both enjoyable. As an adult, I found myself, even though I enjoyed it, I found myself picking apart Gremlins a lot.
Me too.
There's a lot. It's all over the place, for one thing. Mm-hmm. The story goes there's so many different threads. You can tell that there's production issues, in terms of it started out dark and then moved to comedy. It was always supposed to be comedy, but the comedy was supposed to be darker. Yeah. And then the darkness goes away and turns into straightforward slapstick comedy. Despite those problems, though, it's a movie that grabs onto you.
Oh, yeah.
And it keeps your attention, and it's good. The Muppets Christmas Carol, I feel, is a really strong movie, period. Coming back to it, other than my really huge beef with them cutting the song,
it made us, we were both really mad about
really
that.
upset. Other than that, I feel like it just really holds up as a movie. Yeah. It's my favorite retelling of that very classic story. I still laugh, and it's cute. It's good for kids, but it doesn't talk down to kids. Mm-hmm. It treats kids as smart. It treats adults as smart. The acting from Michael Caine is good. The Muppets are funny. My biggest complaint, other than the song, is there's not more Miss Piggy, because I love Miss Piggy.
She's our favorite, And she is hilarious. She has the best
lines in the movie. So they don't use much of her, but what they use is good.
It does, doesn't it?
Well, I suppose that on the blessed day of Christmas, one must drink to the health of Mr. Scrooge, even though he is odious, stingy, wicked, and unfeeling, and badly dressed.
Watching both. Muppet Christmas Carol, perfect for everyone. Gremlins, know your audience, know your kids. We could take it as kids, but I still got nightmares. I just didn't care because I like being scared.
Yeah, but both movies are great.
Yeah. All right, well, I think I speak for Theo as well as myself when I say we want to thank you for taking part in us kind of going over our childhood, our nostalgia. These are two films that were really important to us as kids, and they've shaped, how we view films, why we love movies as much as we do. I think the way we view cinema actually would be different if we hadn't watched those films as kids.
I agree.
From all of us to all of you, I want to wish you a very happy holidays. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah.
A joyous solstice.
A great Kwanzaa.
And, of course, definitely be safe on New Year's. We'll see you next year.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
God bless us.
God bless us, everyone. The love we found, the love we found, we carry with us, so we're never quite alone.